Hey team, welcome back to my channel. In this video, we are going to create a registration form. Now, you must have Angular 13 installed on this computer to implement this video's content. We can do this. Let's go. Let me simply walk you through the features you'll need to become familiar with before we get started reviewing this project source code. This will give you a chance to decide if this project's objectives are of interest to you. Now, this project is not hooked up to a database, but we'll use a service to provide the data as well as functions to go fetch that data. Now, the fields of interest are the state, county, and city, and they are dependent on each other. I call that drop-down dependency. And you will see in just a moment when I select a state name, the counties are selected for only that state. And working further, only the cities in that county will be shown. I think you get it. Well, verbally, that is my plan of action. Let me give you the demo so you can see how this will work. So I will start with a first name, last name. How about we say Fred Sanford, 123 Sun Street, and he is Florida, Orange County, Winter Park. Then I can hit the save button. And notice the fields that I did the data entry in are available in the object. I can press the cancel button, kind of start this all over, and notice we have some state management on the save button. Notice that we have a custom CSS. When you see red, that means invalid. When it goes green, it's good. So if we say Fred here, notice it's green. In here I said min length 3, so it takes at least 3 characters for that to turn on. You see it. And then when I select a state, that turns on. So that is the app that I would like to teach you. Look forward to you sticking around. We'll get through this. Let's start off by creating a folder, and then we're going to see ng new registration. Press enter. Would you like to add routing? Just say no there. And then select CSS as our style sheet format. And there you have it. Packages installed successfully. Let's open up a command prompt. Let's go to the directory where we just created, change directory to registration. And then to say code dot. Here you can see that Visual Code gets loaded, and this is our project that we just created. Let's go into the source folder, go into apps, and then notice apps component HTML. Let's control A that, let's delete it all, and then let's just say H1 sample. So we're just going to begin with this right here. Let's go to getbootstrap.com. We're going to use this as our CSS styling. Scroll down until you see include via CDN, and let's get this link right here and just click this to copy to clipboard. Find the file index.html, open that. Underneath this first link statement, let's paste in what we just copied from Bootstrap, and that is our CSS link. Let us make sure that Bootstrap is installed correctly in our file called app component HTML, this file right here. Let's type in button class, button space, button dash primary. Make it look just like this line right here. And then what I want you to do for sure is say file, save all. Make sure we got everything saved. We want to make sure that that one line got saved. File, save, right? And now what we're going to do is we're going to say open terminal, a new terminal, and then let's load this. So what we say is ng serve -o. And what that will do is that will render our website. I guess I've already got one running. Yours might not say that. I'm going to say I used a different port. I'm going to say yes. And then here is our website. And notice that we have a blue button. That blue button tells me if yours looks just like this, then Bootstrap was installed correctly and we can continue. Now, let us proceed, terminal, new terminal. And then we're going to do the command ng service. I'm going to create a folder called domain, and we're going to put a file in there called site. And that's going to create a file called site.service.ts. Then I'm going to skip the test. Let's do that. Press enter. Notice it has created my folder and I have my file site.service.ts. In the comments below, you will see some comments from Software Nugget, that's me, and I don't need you to type in all of this. So go ahead and paste that into your source code, and then we can continue. I'm going to load up another program called TypeScript Playground, and I'm going to copy this function over that I've written, and we're going to walk through this and see what happens. So just sit back and enjoy this. And before you type this into site.service.ts, let's make sure that you understand that. The first statement on line 22, I'm going to use locations, and then I'm going to use the JavaScript array method map, and I'm going to say, hey, see that column called state? Well, I just want that one out of this whole set, and then on my console log that. So notice my output, I just have a bunch of states. So I have an array of states. Now the second statement on line 25, I'm saying let set state, this is the name of my variable, equals new set. So remember when I got the array of states? Well, I don't want all of them. I want only the unique values. I want one Florida and one Georgia. That's it. On line 28, I'm going to say let state name equals open parentheses, open braces, ... That's the spread operator. So notice here, I'm going to take the set. Now the set is surrounded by curly braces. I want braces. I want it to make it look like an array. A list, and then I'm going to console that out. Let's run this and see what happens. So notice I started with this full set here. I then just cherry picked out the first column with this map, got just the name, and then I used the set to give me my unique set of elements inside of that array. And then I said, hey, I want it to look like an array again, so ... the spread operator. It's going to give me my state name, and I get Florida and Georgia. Sorry about that detour. We're now back in the game. Now, remember, locations, that came from a comment below. I just talked about get distinct states. I explained to you what map does, and told you about the set, makes it unique. Then we converted it back to a list, an array. Now, our next method is just called get counties. Notice here, we have an input parameter, it's return type, and all of our methods in here is an array of strings. Notice that I'm filtering and then I'm mapping. So here I'm just going to get out the column called county. And I pretty much follow the same steps as I did above. And that's going to give me a list of unique counties for each state. Then our last method, get cities, I'm passing in the state name and the county. I'm going to filter it. I'm going to map just to get the city name, and we're done. I'm just going to return distinct city names. And there you have site.service.ts. All done. We're now going to create a model. How would we do that? Well, let's go up to terminal, new terminal. And then when this thing comes up, we're going to say ng. And then G, you can either type in G or generate. And then we're going to do interface. You can either type I or interface, and then the name of our file. And we're going to say basic model, and then hit enter. Now when this is all done, notice that it created this file over here called basic model. And what we're going to do is we are going to make this object look like this. First name, last name, address 1, 2, city name, state, and county. Now, if the question mark is new to you, that just means that this is nullable. The data types are of type string, and that is our interface called basic model. Let's make some changes to app.module.ts. The first one we're going to do, we're going to add something on line 3, and it's called forms module. And once you get this in, we also have to import that. So come underneath where it says browser module, and we want it a forms module. Now we created that service module as well. So we're going to say there's our service. Now notice where it says provider. What would you type in there? That's right, site service. Let's press the save all button. Everything's saved. Now let's edit the file called app component CSS. Do you remember when I gave the demo and I had the red and green border for invalid? Well, here's that code. And that's going to go into app component CS. Type that in and we'll be ready to continue. Let us begin with app component.html. Go ahead and clear that out of there. Now we're going to start with a whole new form, and let's start off with our boilerplate, and it's a div container p5 text left. And then we're going to do an h1, and that's going to be a registration form. That's going to be like our title. Now for every start div, we need to close div that. Cool. Now the next thing we need to do is just put a big div around this whole form. We're just going to say div. And then inside of that div, what we're going to do is we're going to put our form. And then you just say form. And then the name of it, you just say pound. And I'm going to call it basic form equals ng form. And that's my form. And once we get that, we can start working on our fields. Our fields will come inside of the form tag. They're children. Now the first thing we're going to do, remember we're using bootstrap, so this will be very bootstrap laid out. So I'm going to say div class equals call -6. And that right there will set up our size. Class call -6. And once we get this, now that is the max width of this form. Now we're going to say very, very simply, each of the groups are going to be identical to what I'm about to paste in here. So everything will say class form group, and then we'll always start off with a label. Now for what that does is it points at name. So whatever is inside of name is this value right here. And normally what I do is this name, this name, this name is always identical. And pound first name, this is, we use this down here in our errors. And notice I'm saying first name invalid. So pound, we used to have to go through basic form, value, dot first name. We don't have to do that no more. Just use one of these. Now you'll notice here, this is our first field. Now we have provided some basic help just in case a person has got an error. And I don't want to show the error initially. So if the first name is invalid and then I'm in an or condition. The first name is dirty. That means the person has, like made changes, or it has been at least touched. Then I will give them the error message underneath the value. And notice here we're saying min length is 1 and max length is 30. And this is called two-way binding. So notice here we're using the required keyword, and that is how we're picking that up on line 17. And that is our first field, first name. Our second field, last name, follows the same structure. Whatever the name is here will be named in first, our ID, name, and notice it is also the name of our hashtag last name. I use that down here. And that is the same statement we have as on line 16, except I'm using a different variable name and a message. Notice min length, max length, it's a required field. That is last name. Good catch. So last name. And here we go for address line 1. We're inside of a form group, just like above. For address 1, address 1, address 1, address 1. Notice we use that throughout our error zone. This is kind of like after an error has been raised, we show this. If and only if address 1 is invalid and is dirty or has been touched. And is it required? Yes, it's been required. Notice here we have two-way binding. Our next field, address line 2, notice there is no error messaging. It is not required. Address 2, address 2, address 2 as true, address 2, two-way binding to the object. Now on our first select object, HTML gets a little bit more complicated, but it follows the basic principles. We have our form group, start, end. Then I have my label, and then I'm putting a paragraph tag, and then I begin my select tag. Notice I say class, custom select. Now on change, I'm going to be calling a method called state change, and that's going to be an app component TS. Haven't written that yet, but that's what we're going to write. Then notice we have name, ID, and hashtag state, required true, and two-way binding. Now is where it gets very, very kind of complicated. And you'll see here, the first thing I do is I set a default value. And I say, if that basic model state is undefined, I want to say select state name. Now, if that's not it, then I want to show the state that the user has selected. And this is just the basic way of doing it. And because this is just an array, I'm going to take this value and put it into ng value and display it inside of the option. And there it is, the state. Now, county is going to get a little bit more complicated. Notice on state changed, I only had one input, just the state. And on county changed, notice now I got the state changed and I have the county. The goal is now I'm calling the city. I want to get a list of cities for the state and the county. Here, I want to get the counties because the state has changed. And notice I'm using the same logic I used up here for select. I say selected if the base model, not country, but county, equals undefined. And then we're going to say let county for distinct county names. And I just kind of broke this down in 2 lines so you could see it. Hopefully that makes sense to you. Two-way binding. And that is our second in a series of dependent drop-down combos. We are on the last drop-down, city. City. Now it's actually called city name. Got to slow down here. And so what is this label for? That means when I click on this, it will put focus onto this control. That's what the label is all about. So notice here we have city name, city name, city name. It is required basic model city name, two-way binding. Then we have a option undefined if city name is undefined. Select a city name. And let city of distinct city names where ng value is city option. Okay, very good. And that finishes up our form. Now we're just going to put some buttons underneath this. And that should clean that up quite a bit. So that'll be right here. So underneath that last one, we're going to put a button, a save button, and a cancel button. And then notice here, I'm going to disable the save button if the form is invalid. And when I click on that button when it is valid, I'm going to call the method on submit. And I'm doing that same thing for the clear button. I'm just actually calling it cancel. So we will just finish up the bottom of this HTML, and that is the way it's going to look. And here we go with app component.ts. We're going to start off with our 4 import statements, component and on init, our form module, our basic model, and our site service. Then we're going to come up with the component selector, template URL, and style URLs. We're just going to take by default. Then we're going to say export class app component implements on init. And here I'm just declaring 2 global variables, is success, is false, and the title registration form. I'm going to use a constructor, and I'm going to say private underscore site service colon site service. That is our service where we get the data and we have our functions. And then we have our 3 global variables that actually maintain those values. Notice that they're just an array of strings. By default, I make them empty. The first thing I do with the basic model is I initialize it with Fred Sanford. And this was his address on his TV show. I'm not sure what city he was in. That's what we have there. And then because I said implements on init, this method gets fired first. And what this does is it sets up my drop-down combos. Notice immediately I say this dot underscore site service get distinct states. And I march my way down and I get counties and cities. And if I don't get data, I make sure I initialize as empty. And that is on init. Now we have 3 methods that came out of our drop-down combos. We have the state changed, the county changed. That's it. Then we have a on submit when a person presses the save button, and then when they press a clear button. We're done. So let's go through this. Now on state change, I'm going to pass in just the state name. Now you know the goal when I'm passing in the state name is to go get a list of counties. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to initialize the county and the city names, drop the list and set them to empty. And then using our object, I'm going to say county is undefined and city name is undefined. Then I'm going to set state name. I'm going to say if state name is undefined, return. Well, I need a state name to actually even do this next method here, get counties. So let's get out of there if one's not available. That is going to populate the global variable inside of my class here. Notice here, distinct names, distinct counties. This is what I do all my interfacing through. And when I look at my HTML, notice that I say, let county in distinct county names, let city of distinct city names, and let state of distinct state names. That's how all those variables are married. So state name would then go call the service get counties, I'm going to pass in the state name if I have it. Now I have it because I want the counties. If I don't have a state name, I return. So I think you understand the state changed. Now when the county changes, I have to get both the state name and the county name. I initialize distinct city names to be empty, and I put the model of city name to be undefined. Now if our input parameters are undefined, I'm going to get out of there. Else, I'm going to go call our service, get cities, and I'm going to pass in the state name and the county name. That's going to give me a distinct list of city names. Now, when they click on the submit button, I'm going to console log that object basic model, and I'm going to set is success to true. Now it is possible what happens, they hit the clear button and I'm going to set is success to false, and then I'm going to make all of my attributes of this model undefined. So from first name down to city name, they're all undefined. And I'm done with the source code for the app component TM. Now, luckily we had the service, and that spread it, like 67 lines of code here, and I don't have to mess with that anymore. And then when I'm looking at my app component, it doesn't look like very much source code at all. So everything is glued together. Let us run this and see how that works. I closed everything down, and now I said terminal, new terminal, and now I'm going to say ng serve and then -o. You can say -- port and give it a port name, like say I wanted a 4300, and so we're just going to wait a moment here. It's generating all the output. I'm building my distribution set, and then in just a moment it will load. Here it is, and notice I have my data. Now I have data because inside of my inside of my app component TS, I put some initial data in there, and notice I put that T in front of Fred. So notice the T in front of Fred there. I'm going to take that away and save that and watch my screen kind of update. That's pretty nice, the environment that's set up here. Now what we're going to do is we are going to hit cancel, and now you knew what happened there. So when I do a drop-down combo, I'm going to go get Florida. Then Florida went out to the service and it got me these service names. So I'm going to pick Volusia. Now when this changed, this went out and got me all the cities for Volusia. And then we'll get New Smyrna Beach. And then I can just come up here and type in some names. Now when I hit the save, that's going to the console, and let me set that up for us. So I press the save button, and my values are now here. And there you have it, team, registration form. And there you have it, team. We are finished. We did it. You should be able to create an Angular service now and use it within any Angular 13 application. Now, the 3 drop-down combo boxes with dependencies, well, they are difficult at first, but with a little practice, it will become second nature. Practice always makes the master. If you have any questions about this video, please leave them below. If you learned something from this video, a thumbs up would be appreciated. And of course, if you want to follow my channel, please consider subscribing. I'll see you back in my next video. Have a great week, team. Adios.